The day I walked into that party, expecting to find joy in the celebration of my grandson's 8th birthday, I had no idea that it would mark the beginning of a betrayal so deep it would tear apart everything I thought I knew about love, family, and trust. The wounds of losing my husband were still fresh, but nothing could prepare me for what was to come. Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I remember the day clearly. It had been a little over a year since Harold passed. His absence still echoes through every room of this house, this life we built together. I was a woman of 72, but inside, I still felt like I was holding on to the last threads of a life that had slipped away too soon. The days felt long and empty without him, and nothing seemed to fill the void. I would wake up, wander through the house, and try to keep myself busy, but no amount of cleaning or gardening or baking could silence the ache in my chest. But despite the weight of grief that threatened to bury me, I tried. I tried to keep going. I even tried to reach out to Daniel, my only son. He had always been distant, but after Harold's death, I wanted to be there for him. I wanted us to hold on to each other. I didn't want to lose him too. So when Leo's 8th birthday rolled around, I thought it would be the perfect chance to show him that I still mattered. I wanted to be there for him. I wanted to be part of his life. "Are you sure you want to go, Mom?" Daniel's voice echoed in my head as I stood in the kitchen, holding the invitation. His words were like a slap in the face, but I hid the sting behind a forced smile. "Of course I want to go," I said, trying to sound upbeat. "It's Leo's birthday. I haven't seen him in weeks." Daniel was silent for a moment, and then he muttered something under his breath. "I just don't want your sadness to ruin the mood." Sadness. That was what he called it. It was more than that. It was grief, pain, and a loss so profound I could barely breathe some days. But I didn't argue. I simply nodded and tried to ignore the hurt. The party was a few days away, and the closer it came, the more I felt my stomach twist with anticipation. I couldn't wait to see Leo's face light up when he saw me. But when the day arrived, I quickly realized that the excitement I had felt was all in my head. The moment I arrived at Daniel and Jennifer's house, I felt it. The coolness in the air, the way Daniel barely made eye contact as he ushered me inside. Jennifer was polite but distant, her forced smile never quite reaching her eyes. I tried to make small talk, but it felt like I was invisible. When I saw Leo, I couldn't help but smile. He was growing up so fast. My heart swelled with love for him, and I couldn't wait to hold him close. But as I walked toward him to give him a hug, Daniel interrupted me. "Mom, not now," he said sharply. "The photographer's waiting for us." I froze. My son had always been a bit distant, but this was different. He had never treated me like this before. He was dismissing me, ignoring me. The hurt was almost too much to bear. I watched as Daniel and Jennifer posed for pictures with their friends and neighbors, laughing, smiling, and acting like the perfect little family. And there I was, standing alone in the corner of the room, my heart breaking with every passing second. As the party continued, I felt more and more invisible. Every time I tried to engage, Daniel shut me down. I could see how Jennifer's eyes would flicker toward him whenever I spoke, as though she was controlling him, manipulating him. It made my blood boil, but I couldn't figure out how to confront it. When the party finally wound down, I was exhausted, emotionally drained. The next day, Daniel came to visit me. I knew he was going to ask me for money. It was his pattern, and I had always given him what he needed. But something inside me was different now. Something had shifted. I couldn't keep enabling him, especially not when he treated me like this. As I sat there, silently watching him play with Leo, I felt a strange sense of resolve building inside me. I wasn't going to be his ATM anymore. I wasn't going to let him use me and then discard me like I was nothing. He came to me with the familiar look in his eyes, the one that told me he needed something. "Mom," he started, "I need some money to cover rent and some bills." I looked at him, my heart aching. This was the moment. I couldn't go on like this. "No, Daniel," I said, my voice firm. "I'm not going to give you money anymore. I'm not going to keep enabling you." His face hardened, his jaw clenched. "What are you talking about? You've always given me money." "I know, but not anymore," I said. "I'm not going to keep doing this. You need to figure things out on your own." His eyes widened, and then his anger flared. "You're doing this on purpose. You're trying to punish me, aren't you? You've always wanted to control me, and now you're using your money to do it. You're just like Dad." The words stung, more than I care to admit, but something inside me snapped. "I'm not trying to punish you, Daniel. I'm trying to teach you something. You need to grow up and take responsibility for your own life. I can't keep doing everything for you." He stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. I stood there, my heart racing, but a strange sense of relief washed over me. For the first time in a long time, I had stood up for myself. But I also knew that this was just the beginning. I had no idea what was coming, but I had a feeling it was going to change everything. I didn't know how right I was. I stood there, staring at the door Daniel had slammed behind him, the sound of it still echoing in my ears. For a moment, I felt relief, but it was quickly replaced by an ache in my chest. My son, my only child, had never been this cold, this dismissive, and the words he had thrown at me, comparing me to Harold, accusing me of manipulation, stung more than I cared to admit. He was angry. No, more than that. He was frustrated, and he was hurting. But I couldn't let him keep using me as a crutch, not anymore. I needed some space. I needed to clear my head. I put on my jacket and stepped outside, walking aimlessly through the neighborhood. The cold air bit at my skin, but it felt good to breathe, to be alone with my thoughts. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about Harold's death or my son's demands. Instead, I found myself trying to make sense of what had just happened. Daniel's anger, Jennifer's calculated indifference, what was going on in their lives? What was I missing? My feet carried me farther than I intended. I found myself walking through the park where the leaves had already begun to change. I loved the fall, the way the colors of the trees seemed to mirror the shifting seasons of my life. But today, the beauty of it all felt distant. I was too distracted by my thoughts, too consumed by the mess of my family. It was when I reached the corner of Oak and Main that I saw them. Jennifer, my daughter-in-law. She was sitting in a cafe with a man I didn't recognize. They were laughing, her hand resting on his arm, as if she had forgotten the world around them. For a moment, I simply stood there, hidden behind the thick glass of the cafe window, watching them. I couldn't help but feel a knot tighten in my stomach. What was this? I had always known Jennifer wasn't the warmest person, but this felt different. This felt wrong. I tried to shake off the unease that crept up on me, but my curiosity got the better of me. Without thinking, I turned away and walked up the street, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew what I was doing wasn't exactly right, but something about the way they were acting made me feel like I needed to know more. I was getting too close to something I wasn't ready to confront, but I couldn't stop myself. My legs carried me further, and before I knew it, I had made my way behind the cafe. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to cause a scene. So I kept my distance, hiding in the shadows of the alleyway. Through the small opening between two buildings, I watched as Jennifer and the man stood up, gathered their things, and walked out of the cafe. They seemed completely at ease with each other. No guilt, no hesitation. As they made their way down the street, I couldn't help but follow them, my steps slow, my heart heavy with the weight of what I was about to discover. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to find, but a deep, unsettling feeling told me that whatever it was, it wouldn't be good. They turned the corner and entered a hotel, their laughter still floating in the air as they walked inside. I stayed where I was, my feet rooted to the ground, my mind racing. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It was like the world had stopped spinning, leaving me frozen in time. Then, as if to confirm my worst fears, I saw it. Jennifer kissed him. She kissed him right there, on the street, before they went inside the hotel. The reality of it hit me like a ton of bricks. My daughter-in-law was cheating on Daniel, and this man, whoever he was the one she was giving herself to. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was going to collapse right there on the sidewalk. All I could think about was Daniel, my son. How was he going to react to this? How could I tell him? How could I possibly break his heart like this? I knew that I had to tell him. I had to. There was no other choice. This was something he needed to know. But the thought of telling him, of seeing his face when he learned the truth, made me feel sick to my stomach. I tried to push the fear away as I walked back to my car. The drive home was a blur, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. What was I going to say? How was I going to do this? How? I could feel the weight of the secret pressing down on me. I knew it would destroy whatever little was left of my relationship with Daniel, but I couldn't ignore it. Not now. When I finally got home, I sat down in the living room, staring at the empty space Harold had left behind. The quiet was suffocating, and all I could hear was the echo of Jennifer's laughter, the sound of her lips meeting that man's, the sound of my world shattering. I had to tell Daniel, but how could I do it? How could I face him and tell him the truth? I tried to calm my nerves, but the thought of confronting him made my hands shake. I paced the room for what felt like hours before finally deciding that I couldn't wait. I couldn't keep this from him. I picked up the phone and dialed his number. My heart hammered in my chest as the phone rang. Hello? Daniel's voice was distant, cold. Daniel, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need to talk to you. There was a pause on the other end, and I could hear him sigh. What is it, Mom? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to come. It's about Jennifer. I saw her today with someone. A man. They were kissing, Daniel. She's cheating on you. There was a long silence. The kind of silence that stretches between two people like a canyon, wide and impossible to bridge. Then Daniel spoke, his voice tight with disbelief. You're lying. I wish I was, I whispered, my throat tight with emotion. But I'm not. I saw them together. I couldn't just stand by and say nothing. I waited for his response, but it didn't come. I could feel the space between us growing, the chasm widening with every passing second. Finally, Daniel's voice broke the silence. I don't believe you, Mom. I don't believe it. I'm telling you the truth, Daniel. You have to believe me. But I could already hear it in his voice. The doubt, the anger, the disbelief. He didn't want to believe it, and part of me knew he wouldn't. But I couldn't back down now. I'll prove it, I said, my voice shaking. I'll show you everything. I hung up the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't going to be easy, but I had to do it. I had to make him see. I couldn't let Jennifer get away with this. I couldn't let her destroy my family. Not without a fight. I had barely slept the night before. My mind had been racing, replaying the scene at the cafe, the kiss, the man I didn't recognize. It felt like a nightmare, something I couldn't wake up from. But it was real. It was all real. And now, I had to face Daniel. I had to tell him what I had seen, what I knew, no matter how much it tore me apart to do it. I had to tell him for his sake, for the sake of our family. The morning felt too still, too heavy. I had rehearsed what I was going to say 100 times in my head, but each time I thought about it, the words became harder to speak. What if he didn't believe me? What if he hated me for telling him the truth? What if it ruined everything? But I couldn't hold it in anymore. I knew the truth had to come out, and it was up to me to be the one to bring it to light. When I arrived at Daniel's house, I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. It had been years since I had visited this house, years since I had felt like I was welcome here. There was a time when it had been a home, a place where I was needed, but now it felt cold, like a place where I no longer belonged. I rang the doorbell, my hands trembling, and waited. After a few moments, the door opened, and Daniel stood there, looking at me with that same guarded expression. I couldn't tell if he was angry or just indifferent, but I had to do this. Mom, he said, his voice flat. What's this about? I took a deep breath and stepped inside, knowing I couldn't back out now. Daniel, I need to talk to you about Jennifer. He frowned, clearly irritated. What about her? I don't have time for this. I saw her today, I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to sound calm. She's cheating on you. I saw her with another man. They went into a hotel together. I watched them. You're lying, Daniel interrupted me, his voice rising. This is ridiculous. Why are you doing this, Alice? What do you want from me? Stop trying to make me look like a fool. He shook his head in disbelief, his hands clenched at his sides. You've always been the drama queen. But this is too far. You're just trying to hurt us. I felt a sting in my chest. I wasn't trying to hurt him. I was trying to help him, to open his eyes to what was right in front of him. But the more I spoke, the more he pushed me away. I'm not lying, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. I saw her. Daniel, I'm telling you the truth. Daniel's face reddened and his jaw tightened. He looked as if he was about to say something more, but then the door to the other room creaked open. Jennifer. She stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with shock, and then she quickly masked it with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She had heard everything. Oh, Alice, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Are you serious? You're really doing this? She took a step into the room, her eyes narrowing in contempt. You're not even ashamed of yourself, are you? How far are you willing to go to destroy our lives? I opened my mouth to speak, but Jennifer wasn't done. She moved closer, her tone sharpening. You're getting old, Alice. You're losing your mind, aren't you? You need help. Maybe it's time you admit that. The words cut deeper than I wanted to admit, but I couldn't back down. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the truth. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. Not this time. Not when I knew the damage she was doing to my son. You don't get to talk to me like that, I said, my voice rising. I'm not the crazy one here. You are. You're the one who's destroying everything. You've been lying to Daniel, and you think I won't see it? Jennifer's eyes flashed with fury. She took a step toward me, her body stiff with anger. I don't need to listen to this. You've never been part of our family, Alice. You think I don't know what you're trying to do? You've always wanted to ruin things, and now you're using this to tear us apart. What kind of person does that? I could feel the rage building in me. This wasn't just about her affair anymore. This was about years of manipulation, years of pretending like everything was fine when it wasn't. And Jennifer? She was the mastermind behind it all. I was trembling, but not from fear, from anger, from frustration, from the years of being ignored, belittled, and pushed aside. Without thinking, I reached for the nearest object on the table, a glass. It was a stupid impulse, a split-second decision driven by frustration. I grabbed the cup, and in one swift movement, I hurled it toward the floor with all my might. The sound of shattering glass filled the room, sharp and deafening. The cup broke into a million pieces, and one of the shards flew toward Jennifer, slicing into her leg. She screamed, the sound high-pitched and filled with rage. "Look what you did!" she cried, clutching her leg. Blood started to seep through her fingers. "You tried to kill me! You're insane, Alice! You're completely out of control!" Her words hit me like a slap. I hadn't meant to hurt her. I didn't even care about her, not really. But what I did care about was the fact that she was now turning the situation around, making me the villain. She was playing the victim, and I was the one who was losing. Daniel rushed to her side, his face twisted in anger and disbelief. "What the hell is wrong with you, Mom?" he shouted. "You've lost your mind. Get out of my house. Now!" I stood there frozen, my heart breaking all over again. I had tried to help him. I had tried to tell him the truth, and this was how he repaid me. Jennifer's bloodshot eyes looked at me with a twisted satisfaction. She had won. She had turned my own son against me, and there was nothing I could do about it. "I'm done, Alice," Daniel said, his voice cold. "I don't want to see you again." I didn't say a word as I turned and walked out the door. The weight of his words, of the way he had thrown me out like I was nothing, was too much to bear. But I knew deep down that I couldn't give up. I couldn't let them win. I would find a way to make them see the truth, even if it meant losing everything. I had never felt so powerless in my entire life. The days after the confrontation were a blur. I didn't hear from Daniel, didn't see him. Jennifer's words still echoed in my mind, how she had twisted everything, turned me into the villain. And Daniel, my own son, had rejected me, thrown me out of his home as if I were the one causing harm. I spent those next days in a haze of confusion, unsure of what to do next. I couldn't go back to that house. I couldn't face him, not after what he said. But I also couldn't let things end like this. I had to keep fighting. There had to be a way to make them see the truth. But that fight wasn't going to be as simple as I thought. It was a Wednesday morning when it all started. I had gone to the market, trying to distract myself from everything that had happened. As I walked down the aisle, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting to see a message from Daniel. Maybe he was finally reaching out. Maybe he was finally realizing the truth. Instead, it was a text from Jennifer. "We need to talk about you. You're not well. Daniel and I are worried about you. This can't go on." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. What did she mean, "this can't go on"? I had barely finished reading the message when the phone rang. It was Daniel. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, his voice flat, emotionless. "Jennifer and I are really concerned. You're not doing well. You need help." "Help?" I echoed, confused. "What do you mean, Daniel? I'm just trying to tell you the truth about your wife. I'm trying to protect you." "You're not well, Mom," he repeated, his voice strained. "We think it's time for you to get some professional help. Maybe even go to a facility, just for a little while. You're getting more aggressive. You threw a glass at Jennifer. That's not okay." I stood there, frozen in the middle of the grocery store, the words sinking in. A facility? They wanted to send me to a facility? It felt like the ground was slipping out from under me. Daniel, I said, my voice trembling. I'm not crazy. I'm not losing my mind. I saw what I saw and I'm trying to protect you. You need to understand. I'm sorry, Mom, he interrupted. But this isn't something we can ignore anymore. We've already talked to a doctor. Jennifer's been doing some research, and we think it's best for you to get some help. We'll arrange for everything. It'll be better for you. The last sentence cut through me like a knife. It'll be better for you. The words felt like a lie. This wasn't about me getting better. This was about them getting rid of me. They were trying to control me, to take away what little independence I had left. Daniel, please, I begged, my voice cracking. Don't do this. You're letting her manipulate you. Don't let her do this to me. But the line went silent. A moment passed, and then I heard him sigh, a heavy sound full of resignation. I'm doing this for you, Mom. I want you to get better. I want to help you. Before I could say anything else, he hung up. I stood there in the aisle, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. A hospital? A psychiatric facility? Was that what I had become in their eyes? Someone who needed to be locked away? I didn't have time to process it all before the doorbell rang at my house later that day. I wasn't expecting anyone, so when I answered it, I was shocked to see Daniel standing there with Jennifer by his side. She had that same smug, pitying smile on her face that made my blood boil. I'm sorry, Mom, Daniel said, looking more uncomfortable than I had ever seen him. But we've made arrangements. We think it's best for you to go. It's time for you to get some help. Get some help? I repeated, my voice rising with anger. I'm not going to some damn facility. I don't need help. I need you to see what's going on. What she's doing to you. Jennifer stepped forward, her voice sweet but dripping with malice. Daniel and I are just trying to do what's best for you, Alice. You're not the person you used to be. You're becoming more unstable, more erratic. We can't just sit back and watch you hurt yourself. I wanted to scream at her, to expose the truth right there, but I knew it wouldn't matter. They wouldn't listen. They were already so deep in her lies, they wouldn't believe me. They're waiting for you at the facility, Daniel said, his eyes avoiding mine. We'll take care of everything. I could feel my world crumbling. I had never imagined that my own son would do this to me, that he would allow Jennifer to manipulate him into believing I was the problem. This was the ultimate betrayal. Before I could even speak, two men in suits, who I hadn't seen before, stepped into the doorway behind Daniel and Jennifer. They didn't say anything. They just stood there, silent and cold. My heart raced. I knew what they were there for. Daniel, please, I whispered, my voice shaking. Don't do this. You can't let them take me. I'm not crazy. But Daniel just stepped aside, his face unreadable. I'm doing what's best for you, Mom. I'm sorry. One of the men moved toward me. Mrs. Alice, please. We need to get you to the car. I wanted to fight. I wanted to scream, to fight back against this madness. But I was too weak, too broken. They were taking me, and there was nothing I could do about it. As I was led to the car, Jennifer's voice echoed behind me. It'll be better for you. Alice, you'll see. The ride to the facility felt like a slow, suffocating nightmare. I was trapped. I had no control, no voice. The tears I had held back for days finally spilled over as I sat in the back seat, staring out the window at the world I was being taken away from. I had never felt so alone in my life. They were treating me like I was incapable, like I didn't have a say in my own life. But they were wrong. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't weak, and I wasn't going to give up. I would find a way out. I had to. The walls of the facility were stark, cold, and impersonal. The sterile smell of disinfectant hung in the air, mixing with the quiet hum of machines in the background. It was nothing like the life I had known before. This was not my home. This was a place where people went when they had nowhere else to go, when they were deemed incapable of taking care of themselves. And that's what they thought of me now. I sat in the small, uncomfortable chair in my room, my hands resting on my lap, feeling the weight of it all. How had I gotten here? Just a few weeks ago, I was in my own home, living my life, trying to help my son see the truth. Now, I was being treated like an invalid, a burden, and the worst part, no one was listening. Daniel, my own flesh and blood, had done this to me. He had let Jennifer manipulate him, let her convince him that I was losing my mind. I had spent years protecting him, loving him, only for him to throw me aside like I was nothing. And Jennifer? She was the puppet master, pulling the strings behind it all. It was humiliating, the way they treated me, the way they spoke to me, as if I were fragile, as if I couldn't understand what was happening. I had never felt so small in my entire life. The first visit they made to see me was an ordeal I would never forget. Daniel showed up, looking uncomfortable and guilty, like he didn't really know how to deal with the situation. I could tell he was struggling with the decision he had made. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, something that resembled regret, but it was fleeting. He didn't know what to say at first. He stood by the door, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his gaze avoiding mine. I watched him, the same child I had raised, the same son who used to come to me for comfort, for guidance. Now, he was a stranger. "Mom," he said finally, his voice soft. I don't know what to say. This whole situation it's messed up." I didn't respond. What was there to say? He had already made his decision. He had already chosen Jennifer over me. He looked down at the floor, shifting uncomfortably. "I feel bad, you know. It's just hard seeing you like this." I could see the guilt in his eyes, but it didn't matter. The damage had been done. The betrayal had been too deep. Jennifer, standing next to him, put on her best concerned expression, though I could see right through it. She was faking it, just like she had faked everything else. "I know, Daniel," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "It's really hard to see her like this, but she needs help. We're doing this because we care about her, because we want her to get better." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much I saw through her lies, how I knew exactly what she was doing, but I kept my mouth shut. There was no point. They didn't want to hear the truth. They had already made up their minds. When Daniel excused himself to go to the bathroom, leaving me alone with Jennifer, I felt the tension in the air shift. It was as if the moment of false sympathy was over, and the real Jennifer was finally going to show her true face. She leaned in close, her voice low, almost a whisper, though there was nothing kind about her tone. "Now that you're here, Alice," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "I'm going to take everything you have, your house, your car, your finances. It'll all be mine soon, and in time, it'll all be my lover's too. You don't have anything left, nothing, and there's nothing you can do about it." I felt the weight of her words, the venom in her voice. My body went cold, my stomach twisted in knots. It was as if everything I had worked for, everything I had built, was slipping through my fingers. My son, my home, my life, it was all being taken from me. But what hit me the hardest wasn't just the realization that Jennifer was after my money, after my life. It was the realization that Daniel had no idea. He had no idea what kind of woman she really was. He was so blinded by her manipulation that he couldn't see the truth, and Jennifer was exploiting that, using him to get everything she wanted. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. How had I not seen it sooner? How had I been so blind to her scheming ways? Jennifer's smile widened as she saw the look on my face. She knew she had won. She knew I was powerless to stop her. "You'll never get out of here, Alice," she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "We have you exactly where we want you. You're weak. You're nothing now." I refused to let her see how much her words hurt. I refused to give her the satisfaction of knowing how deeply she had cut me. Instead, I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You won't get away with this. I will fight you. I will fight you until I have nothing left." She chuckled, a low, mocking sound that made my blood boil. "You're welcome to try," she said, turning on her heel and walking away. As I sat there, the weight of her words pressing down on me, I knew that I couldn't give up. I couldn't let Jennifer win. I couldn't let her destroy everything Harold and I had worked for. I had to find a way out. I had to find a way to expose her, to show Daniel the truth. But more than that, I had to find a way to regain control of my life. Because if I didn't, everything I had ever known, everything I had ever loved, would slip away from me forever. And I wasn't ready to let that happen. Not yet. I couldn't just sit here in this place, waiting for Jennifer to take everything I had worked for. I couldn't let her win. I had to do something. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized what I needed was something concrete, something real, evidence. I had to have something to prove to Daniel that Jennifer was not the sweet, innocent woman she pretended to be. I wasn't going to let my son stay in the dark. He needed to know the truth. I knew he wouldn't listen to me directly, not after everything that had happened, but I had to find a way to make him see the monster she really was. The only problem was that I was stuck here, that I was in this God-forsaken facility, trapped. They were controlling my every move, my every breath. I couldn't just walk out and confront them. If I tried, they would call Daniel, and I would lose any chance of gaining his trust again. But I could still do something. I could use the resources around me. I was allowed to use the computer in the common area of the facility. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Late one night, when the other residents were asleep, I made my way into the room. My hands were shaking as I sat down, but I had to do this. I had to act quickly, before Jennifer and Daniel could do any more damage. I opened the browser and searched for a private investigator. I had no idea how to go about it, but I knew I couldn't waste time. I found a few listings, but one caught my eye. A local detective agency with solid reviews. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest, and clicked the number to call. A man answered on the second ring. "Hello? This is Donovan Investigations. How can I help you?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "I need help," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "There's something going on, something I need to expose, but I can't do it myself." I explained everything to him, how Jennifer had manipulated Daniel, how she had taken control of my life, and how I was now trapped in this facility. I told him about the affair, about the way she was scheming to take everything I had, and then I gave him my final piece of the puzzle. I told him about Leo, my grandson, and how I suspected that Jennifer's lover might be his father, not Daniel. Donovan was quiet for a moment, listening to every word, and then he spoke, his tone measured but serious. "We can get you the evidence you need, but you're going to need more than just the affair. You need proof that she's manipulating everything for your money. That's the key to legally fighting her." I thought for a moment, the pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place. I couldn't just expose the affair and expect Daniel to believe me. I needed proof of the bigger scheme, the financial manipulation, the control over Daniel, the lies she'd been feeding him. "I have an idea," I said suddenly. "I need you to get me something. A recorder. I'm stuck in the facility, but I have an opportunity to catch her. I just need a way to record her saying what she's been doing, what she plans to do." Donovan agreed to the plan. He would send me a recorder, and I would find a way to get Jennifer to slip up. But the hardest part was yet to come. I knew that if I tried to escape, they would immediately call Daniel. And if he came, Jennifer would be right behind him. I needed them to come to me, to confront me, but I needed to have the upper hand. The only way to get what I needed was to force Jennifer into a situation where she would reveal herself, where she would expose her manipulations. The plan started to take shape. The sound of my footsteps echoed in the hallway as I paced back and forth, my mind swirling with the details of my plan. Everything had to go perfectly. One wrong move, and I could lose everything. But I had no choice anymore. Jennifer thought she had won, but I was going to turn the tables on her. I was going to expose her once and for all. The plan was simple. I had to make a scene. I had to make them think I was desperate enough to try to escape this hellhole. If I could get their attention, make them think I was losing control, it would force them to act, and that would get Daniel here. Jennifer, too. They would come, and that was when I would have my chance to record her, her true self, her lies, her manipulations. So I made my move. I slammed the door to my room, throwing some of my belongings onto the floor as loudly as I could. Then I yelled, I screamed, calling for help, calling out to anyone who would listen. I shouted about how I was being locked up, about how I couldn't take it anymore, how I needed to leave. It was all an act, of course, but it had to be convincing. I could hear the footsteps of the staff rushing down the hallway, their voices rising in alarm. But I didn't stop. I needed them to panic. I needed them to call Daniel. I needed them to bring him here, with Jennifer by his side. And just as I had hoped, within minutes, the phone rang at the front desk. I didn't need to hear the conversation to know what was happening. They were calling him. Daniel would be on his way. Jennifer would be with him. The trap had been set. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of the door opening. Daniel walked in, his face a mix of confusion and frustration, as if he had been pulled away from something important. Jennifer stood beside him, her face perfectly composed, the fake concern still plastered on her features. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" Daniel asked, his voice filled with irritation. "What is this? Why are you acting like this?" I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he shifted his weight as he looked at me. He didn't want to be here. He didn't want to deal with me, and I could feel it in the air between us. But this was the moment. This was the time to manipulate the situation, to make him think that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as crazy as Jennifer wanted him to believe. I took a deep breath, forcing my face into a mask of regret. My voice came out soft, almost pleading. "Daniel, I'm sorry. I know you're doing this because you care, but I can't keep living like this. I need to get out of here. Please, can you talk to the doctor? Maybe I can have fewer restrictions. Please help me." For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes. I could see it, the confusion, the remorse. He hated seeing me like this. He hated that I was in this place, but he was so blinded by Jennifer that he couldn't see that it wasn't my fault. It wasn't me. It was her. But I couldn't say that. Not yet. Daniel didn't respond right away. Instead,